Hey, you're looking for a podcast where you can hear from some of the great hockey legends, hear them tell some terrific stories, find out what they're up to today? Well, you came to the right place. It's the Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Reda. Today's guest, he's a Stanley Cup champion, back with the Habs in 1993. Top 25 on the all-time points per game list. Number 33 on the NHL's all-time scoring list. Rated a top 100 player of all time. Entered the Hockey Hall of Fame in the year 2000. He's our friend, Denis Savard. Denny, great to see you, my friend. You look like you're in fantastic shape.
Well, thanks, Gino. Yeah, I feel good, 63 and still doing a lot of things that I want to do. Very lucky for that. So I'm blessed for good health and hopefully for many years to come.
I hear you're going out to golf with the Chicago police today. That's a wise decision, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great cause. Some of our officers, they have serious injuries, and that's what we're raising money for. And it'll be a great day. As a matter of fact, the weather's going to be spectacular. It'll be about 70, 78. What would that be? About 20, 23 Celsius.
You still got it, Denny. It's been a long time since you lived in your hometown of Montreal, but you still got it, my friend. Amazing. Listen, when I think back on your career, I think of the stuff that you were able to do as a smaller player in an era where the smaller players didn't get away with a lot. 1,338 points in just 1,196 games. In terms of points per game, you're top 25 all time in that list, which to me is mind-boggling. As a young boy growing up playing hockey, did you ever think in your mind that anybody would ever mention you in the top 25 of a category in NHL history?
Well, pretty much everyone would say this, no, because the fact that, it's very hard to achieve. I mean, you need good teammates, good line mates, good teams. And I was fortunate to be on some of those. I grew up in a little town in Verdun outside of Montreal where there were 3 outdoor rinks, maybe 100 yards from where I lived. Yeah. So I was able to be on there a lot. When I had free time, which I had pretty much free time besides going to school, I was able to get on the ice. And I'm a baby of 4 brothers. I got 3 brothers. I'm the baby, so 4 of us. And they all played, and they took me along with them and played with some older ones at the time. And I always tell this story because somebody always asked that question: is there a time, you felt that it helped you to become the player that you are? And I say, and I mentioned Verdun and the outdoor rinks where I played. People think of this. We had like 3 games going at once. We had the regular games with the Nets, and we had cross-corner games going cross corners. So there was 3 games going at once. And we had all different colored jerseys on. And your teammates were, the other guys you're playing against. And there was other games going on. So you really had to play with your head up. And for me, it really helped my career, to become the player I was. Those little games that we played. And, you look at all the young coaches now, even in the NHL, they play little games for the guys to, the grind's tough and it's a long season, so they've got to put some drills in there they're fun, and it brings back when we were kids those type of drills. So, it's I've been fortunate, to grow up there and obviously get drafted with the Hawks and give me an opportunity. Not that Montreal win out at the time, we didn't never do that, but it worked out for the best.
Here's a part of the story that boggles my mind, because I remember when you were coming up through the ranks and everybody was talking about you, and you're from, as you mentioned, Verdun, just outside of Montreal. So it seemed like a natural you were going to the Habs first overall in the 1980 draft. It just seemed like a natural. Just to give some background to our audience, I mean, you know this, but just to give a background to an audience, in the late 70s, Molson bought the Montreal Canadiens. Scotty Bowman was their head coach at that point. They just won their 4th straight Stanley Cup. But when the Molsons came in, they hired Irving Grundman as their general manager. This was a guy who was not a hockey guy. He built bowling alleys and was very successful. And Molson wanted a business guy to run the organization. And then when it came to the Habs making their first pick overall, it was like Denis Savard or Doug Wickenheiser. And no offense to Doug Wickenheiser. He was a wonderful man, great human being, but this could have been one of the biggest misses of all time in an NHL draft, where The Habs took Doug Wickenheiser, and then Chicago took you. What went through your mind as that was all unfolding? Because I can't imagine that you weren't thinking, oh my God, this is one of the greatest hockey teams in NHL history. It's in my backyard. This is where I grew up. I can become a Hab. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, they're going with somebody else. A guy from Regina. Again, no offense, but it just didn't seem to make sense.
Well, I remember this because my father was still with us, and he only saw me play my rookie year. But my dad kind of told me, he says, I'm not sure, because we had interviews, and there wasn't many of them, but we did. Obviously, we did Montreal, and we did Winnipeg, and we did Chicago. I think the other team was LA, but my dad wasn't sold on it, and like you said, like we all thought too, is be the right thing to pick me probably, but they saw me play every day. I play in their backyard every day, and they probably saw some flaws in my game, possibly. And to be honest, Gino, I knew that I was not the greatest defensive player. I was never in my career, and even playing junior, we were able to produce a lot of points and goals. So, they probably felt that, that I may not work. So, but as we all know now, they drafted Wick, and I went number 3. Babbage went to Winnipeg, but my dad felt that Chicago is going to be the team that's going to pick me, and as a young boy, you want to just get an opportunity to play and get to the NHL, something that we all dream when we're youngsters, and it worked out great, as you know. I know you're going to want to touch on some of this stuff, but I cannot, I could look back at everything that happened to me, even to today, still working with the Blackhawks as an ambassador, coming back here in 95, they traded back for me, and now we're in 2024 and still working for them, and, got to go back home, play in front of my family and win a Stanley Cup. It's pretty special. Yeah. So, if there's a story to tell, that one's a pretty good one. I'm very fortunate to have lived that. It's, people ask sometimes too, would you change in today's game to today, to back then? No, because at the moments that in my career that I had, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. Habs fans were clearly shocked at that point. You're very humble. You talk about flies in your game, and no, but it was just a miss. It was all a miss. And as somebody in the outside looking in as a broadcaster, I can tell you, we all know it was a miss. But what it was extremely fortunate for the Chicago Blackhawks. I remember Bill Wirtz when, you had 10 amazing seasons with the Habs. You scored 30 or more in 7 straight years, 100 points in 5 of your 10 seasons of the Blackhawks, set a Blackhawks team scoring record, 131 points in the 97-98 season. One of my favorite quotes came from Bill Wirtz, the legendary owner of the Chicago Blackhawks, that said, "Denny helped save the franchise. He made us relevant again." You went into Chicago where at a time they absolutely needed something really good to happen in that organization, because we know what Hawks fans are like. They really, really, really support a winner, but they're very, very demanding. And to quote Bill Wirtz, you saved them and made them relevant again. What was it like to be a part of that process?
I had some great advice, great veterans behind me. The Doug Wilsons, Bob Reeves, Keith Brown, one of them that was tremendous. Rich Preston was my first roommate. People try to remember this, it's way back. But, again, I talk about opportunity, and I was given the chance to play. Keith Magnuson was my first coach. Maggie and Cliff Coral were my first coaches, guys that played, guys that, gave me that break to play in all situations, really. So, and I remember I played like 11 exhibition games. I think we had 12 that year. I had 11 of them. So, and honestly, that gave me a lot of confidence. You didn't play against all the great players and good players at the time in exhibitions. They're half a team, and we had half of our team, and I played a lot of them, and I was able to put some points and goals in, and that really gave me a lot of confidence. So, my first year we didn't have that great of a team. We were an older team, but at the same time, they had some great veterans that under their wing, and made me feel comfortable, made me feel like I'm one of them. And obviously now we could, what's that? How many years ago? 80 to 20, 40. Is it 50 years or no? 40, whatever. 40,
40, I think 50. Yeah. I don't know. It's a lot.
Right. 63, 45 years ago. Wow. Yeah. But, and I remember stepping in Chicago. The first day I stepped in, I stayed at Mr. Wirtz's building, hotel. It used to be called the Bismarck Hotel downtown. The
Bismarck, yeah. Classic place.
You remember that, Gino? Yes. I'm sure you've been there. But anyway, the guys were skating at this ice rink here. It's called Southwest Ice Arena, which is about 15 miles from me, from where I live now, where I'm talking from. And, the first 2 days, talked to my dad. So how was it? Well, I said, Dad, nobody's picked me up yet. What do you mean? My English was very, very, barely spoke English, to be honest. But my dad said, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I'm just sitting here and, ready. And he said, well, let me make some calls. So he made a call. And the following day, the third day, they picked me up. And I went and skated there. This is about 10 days before camp. Even then, we're just scrimmaging, and we all play together like this, get ready for the season. It's kind of an easy scrimmage. But another thing popped in my head. I said, these guys are good skaters, but I think I could outskate them, in my mind. So that gave me another positive thing to go on to the season. So I've been training camp. So all these things came together and, made the team and got to play, my first line mates were Tim Higgins on the right side with Johnny Marks on the left side. Yeah. Especially Johnny Marks. He was a veteran guy, big guy, and, played the game the hard way, the right way. And, and following years, obviously, then we acquired in the draft Steve Larmer, who's one of the greatest player I played with for sure. And Mr. Colford, Bob at the time, trained for Al Secor. That became the line that we had for a long time. And now that's
some great talent.
Yeah, we had fun. So it was, it was a pretty good line. We had we played together for a long time together, and we had Al that could score goals and also, could protect me. And Lars, he did it all.
I want to follow up on that because you've mentioned that a few times, and I've heard you say the quote where you say, there were some times out there I was just trying to survive. It was scary.
Oh yeah.
What was it like? I mean, let's remember today, the smaller player can get a lot more room. There's no clutching and grabbing. They're protected from headshots, and there's a lot more rules in place to give the smaller player a little more space out there because that's what the fans want. The fans wanted to be able to watch a Denis Savard score and fly up the ice and your skating was amongst the best skaters in NHL history. But you played in an era where you didn't have that protection from the league. You played in an era where, it was a much, much, much more physical game, and guys got away with a lot more back then than they do now. What was it like for you? Like you talk about the fact that when you realized you could skate with them and skate better with them, you were going to be okay. But what was it like that first little while where you're stepping out there on the ice and going, I'm a target out here for these guys?
I said, I better skate fast. I knew that. It was going down a lot of sleepless night. Be honest, I talked about it. I'm not afraid to talk about that. Fear was something that I had, and as I got older, you kind of get more fear. When you're young, somewhat of a fear, but as you get older, by 13, 14, 15, 16-year career, 17 at the end, your fear increases. But, I didn't have many good nights sleeping the night before game. I knew that going to a game, not everybody is out to get you, but it's back of your mind because it was just how it was played that, try to get the tougher guys, a grittier player to get after the good players. And that's why teams were built to have protection guys to protect us, guys like me. So, it was not fun. But at the same time, I knew I had great protection. I had great teammates. They're going to be there for me. And that's why I prepared. I said, you know what? Yeah. You have guys playing on your wing. You have guys on the ice. You have a team that's going to try to protect you. And, that's just how I went about it. But I agreed, it's not easy. No question.
Can you tell our fans about the fight you had with Mark Howe and how it ended sending you to the hospital? I mean, you're not a fighter. Let's put that out there. You're not a fighter. You're not out there looking for a fight, and you did end up in the hospital. But if I said to people that Denis Savard got into a fight with Mark Howe and ended up in the hospital, people are like, "Well, of course he would," but not for the reason that most people would think. Tell us the story.
Yeah, poor Mark. Good memory, by the way. It's probably I didn't want to. I think I wanted, but I did because as we got in the fight, and as we all know, Mark wasn't a fighter, and I wasn't either. But it was a stick thing that happened prior to our fight. And I go, "What are you doing? You can't do this." Well, give me I'll do what I want to do. Well, I said, and then all of a sudden we dropped our glove, and again, with fear, I said, "Oh boy, this guy's." I know he's not a fighter in my mind, but I see bigger than me, and he's probably stronger. And his dad is Gordie Howe, so he's got to be pretty strong. So long story short, I got a punch in with an uppercut with my left because I was a lefty. And the next thing I know, I go to the penalty box and I got a piece of tooth in my finger. The scar is still there. You guys can't see it, but it's still there. And I go, "Oh, what is this?" So I take it out, and I go back to the bench after. I tell the trainer, I said, I had a tooth in there. I just took it out. It's all cut, obviously. And the trainer said, "Well, then let's go see the doctor." I go down and see the doctor. So they send me to the hospital, just in case of an infection. It swelled up during the night too, by the way. It swelled up on my hand. So they had to put me whatever stuff they put in there. And, and unfortunately for me for this, I was going to Montreal to do the trip to go play the Canadians, to go home, and I didn't get to make that trip.
No. Yeah, but what a reason, though, Denny. Like, I punched Mark Howe so hard, I got a piece of his tooth stuck in my hand. That's a classic story. You are what I loved about your thing, and listen, for those who don't know, what they need to know about you is you weren't the kind of guy who wanted to go to the bar with the guys after the game that much. I mean, you're a team guy, but you love to socialize with the fans, which is not always the case. There's a lot of players, they're like, "You know what? I play the game, but when I'm on my own, leave me alone." But that wasn't the case for you. You always had a wild relationship with the fans, and you were well known for a kind of guy who didn't mind jumping into a bar and having a beer with some fans. What was that all about? Where did that come from?
Well, I learned from the great ones, Stan Mikita, Bobby All. One, they were obviously retired, but when I came to the Blackhawks, I remember, especially Stan at the start, we used to go to this place not too far from where I live now for lunch. And Stan would come and, trying to advise me on different things and had a beer with them. And obviously there were fans there, that this place was kind of a neighborhood place to go to. And I mean, until this day, I would never refuse a picture or anything like this. I was with the great one last weekend in Montreal. He's amazing. I mean, I see you got Gretchen in the background there, but I see him, with people the kids, families taking pictures. Yeah, come on in, take a picture. So, I just learned from the better ones, the ones that were ahead of me and at a time of me. And then I said, I got to be like this. And I tell this to little kids. I go to ice rinks, go watch some of my friends' kids play. I love watching kids play sports. So, and here's what I tell the little kids. I said, they look at me, like they don't know me very much. I said, well, you go on YouTube, maybe you check your dad or your grandpa knows me, but maybe go on YouTube. But I said, one thing you got to remember, anything you do, you represent your parents. Make sure you do well. So that's what I try to do, represent my mom and dad. And that's what they wouldn't want me to do, be a good guy.
And you had some interesting interactions with fans because you play in the days, like now the players are in a bubble on the ice. They've got mesh to keep the puck in. They've got the glass all around the bench. So you're completely sealed. You can see people, but unless they're climbing over the glass, and we've seen incidents like that with Ty Doby, that there really isn't that much interaction. But you've had some funny interactions with some fans when there is no glass behind there. Can you share a story for us?
Yeah, that's a funny one. Yeah. Minnesota, of all places, right? I mean, that was a rivalry. There was, like you said, there was no glass by the bench. So we're in Minnesota, And I used to smoke that. I don't smoke anymore. I used to smoke. I was on and off cigarettes and stuff, which is really, really bad habit. Please, nobody smokes. But anyway, I quit that a long time ago. But the guy used to say to me when I come back to the bench, "Hey, Savard, have another cigarette." I go, "Okay, I don't pay attention to him." And then kept going, "Savard, have another cigarette. Have another." For long, did this for quite a few years. And finally, I told the guy, I said, "Come on, guy, just watch the game. Leave me alone. What do you care? But you're probably right." I was telling him, but I said, so now, because we didn't have charters then, we used to fly in the next morning, like at 6:30 a.m., flight back to Chicago, Minnesota. So we all go to the bar across the street. I don't know what was the name of the hotel. They'll come back to me, but because we couldn't go have a drink at the hotel itself. So it was one of the rules that you can't go to the hotel have a drink. So we went to this place next door to our hotel, which was another hotel. And I walked in the bar and I see this gentleman that sits right at the corner of the bar, like he owns the bar. And I kind of got next to him and I kind of give one of these, And he looked at me, he goes, "So that's okay. We're all good." I said, "You owe me a beer." He said, "Oh, I do. So I ordered a beer. I said, "I got a couple of teammates of mine." And I said, "Can we get whatever we drink and that?" I said, "Give me a couple of those." And he said, "Yeah, no problem. So, we're drinking with some, kind of go back and forth with some, kept ordering beers. Finally, I tell the guys, "We got to get out of here, let's just go." So I left them without even saying good night or thank you.
Yeah.
I figured I owe him really bad. Yeah. So now the next game, he looks at me, goes, "You got me really good." Because he left about the tab.
I didn't know that. I knew that story, but I didn't know you stuck him with the tab.
But for quite a few years after, we met if we were staying in town. If I felt like if we played good and won, I said, "Well, I'll meet you." If we lost, I said, "I'm not going." So we meet him thereafter for a couple of years after the game. So, it turned out to be, and I lost track of this guy. But for quite a few years, we went out with another beer. He's a really good guy. And then he become, cheered still for his team, but never any words against.
Awesome. Maybe he'll be watching this podcast or listening to this podcast.
So.
Connect you again. That would be very funny.
Guy too.
So if you're the guy that Denis Savard stiffed for the beers in the bar back in Minnesota, you know how to contact him now. Jump in the comments and we'll connect with you guys. That's hilarious. Hey, hockey fans, next time you're watching a game at home or if you're hungry right now, Domino's has got you covered. Check out their $8.99 mix and match deal, a medium 2-topping pizza plus your choice of pasta, cheesy bread, boneless chicken, or classic chicken wings. Any 2 items for only $8.99 each. Canada's favorite pizza at Domino's.ca. Listen, you had a phenomenal run with the Blackhawks. Like I say, record-breaking numbers, 30-plus goal seasons, a string of them, 100-point seasons. Then in 1990, you're involved in the deal, blockbuster trade to the Habs that involved Chris Chelios. And a big part, first up, how surprising was that? And maybe you should have seen it coming because your relationship with then head coach Mike Keenan had gone a little bit south. Yep. Which, Iron Mike's had relationships with a lot of guys go south. What are your memories of that whole transition of going to Montreal?
Yeah, it was the right time. Obviously, everybody knows this. Mike and I didn't get along, but that's okay. This coach, not my preferred coach over my career. There's no doubt about that. But, he won, so you can't criticize the fact that he's won a cup. He's wherever he was, he won. I know it was short term, but he still did the job that he had to do. So I kind of knew something would probably happen this summer, and my contract was up. And at the time, Pierre Lacroix was general manager for the Yaddle Ranch. Pierre was my agent then. And he said, I think there's a chance we get traded this summer. And I remember I'm playing golf at Butler National here in Chicago. We're playing Invitational with a friend of mine. And the golf pro comes on the golf course, and we're on the summit. So he goes, "Hey," he says, "you're going to put a phone call. They want you to take it now." I said, "That's fine." I said, "Take the number." I said, let me finish the 9 holes. So it was my agent calling. And He said, well, we just got traded to Montreal. And I said, oh, okay. I said, perfect. I said, go back home, so forth. And he said, it's going to work out good for you too, because my contract was up. Obviously French Canadian kid going back home. They kind of paid me pretty good at the time. So it was timing worked out good. And the most important thing of all that, got to win the cup in 93.
What was that? Sorry, go ahead.
But, and I don't people know this, but Shelly and I worked together with Hawks as ambassadors. We lost Stan, we lost Bobby, we lost Tony. So there's only two of us right now doing the ambassadorship. But so we got traded with each other and our best friends. What was it like? Yeah, I was shocked. I was surprised. And, was it hard to play there? It was, in the sense that, I remember going to the office upstairs and meet Serge Savard was our general manager.
Yeah.
He says, here's the deal here. I said, what's the deal? He goes, you will not get on our point season anymore. That's over. You're going to play the way the Canadians play, but you're going to win the Stanley Cup. If that's your goal, you're going to have to change your game. I said, well, I'm in for it. But I said, I'll be honest, I said, I'm not very good at playing the other way, the way I play. I said, I'll try to make it work, but it's going to be difficult for me to change. So long story short, I did change and got, I think, about 75 points, 29 goals my first 2 years there. It was the hardest 29 goals I've ever scored. That I could tell you. It was more of a team game, more of a grinding game.
But it worked, Denny. But it worked.
Yeah, exactly. No,
it worked. The transition, I'm sure, was difficult for you, but it worked, because here's a kid goes back to his hometown, a Habs organization that had gone through a drought at that time, and for Canadian teams in general had gone through a drought. And then you guys win the cup in 1993. As a kid who grew up in Verdun, was so close to Montreal, grew up as a Montreal Canadiens fan, didn't get a chance to start your early part of your career. What was it like to be a part of the 1993 Stanley Cup winning Montreal Canadiens?
It's ultimate high ever for me. And many things that happened to me in my hockey career. And I'll tell you another story. So I drove with Patrick every day, because Patrick and I were neighbors in Rosemary. And I've never been to finals. I've been, I think, 5 or 6, 7 finals prior. It's a great one. Against the others, against Calgary, and up in the cup. So I asked Patrick that question. I said, wait, I said, I'll tell you, I'm very nervous. He goes, what are you nervous about? I said, I'm in the finals. I said, I got a chance to win a cup. Never been there. I said, I think we have a really good shot. He looked at me, he goes, good shot. He said, we're going to win. You're going to get a ring. I go, you think so? He said, I know so. He says, I think that I could be the difference. So Patrick, take mentally, he's so confident. And he said, I know we're playing a great team. LA's a good team. And but they play a lot of hockey. We've been rested up. And I think we have a character to do this. And he said, you go have some fun and we're going to win. So I played game 1. And in game 5 against the Islanders, I blocked a shot, something I never did with pucks. Actually, the puck probably just hit me, but my foot. I had a little hairline fracture that I didn't know until after game 1. I must have got hit in game 1 against the Kings. I don't remember that I got hit, but my foot swelled up. And I wasn't able to play game 2, game 3. Could have played game 4. And obviously could have played definitely game 5. But, we're up 2-1 in the series. It's not about Denis Savard. Yeah, I want to be in uniform. I want to win a cup. And I said, Mike, I don't think, it was kind of with the coaching staff at the time with Jacques Demers and Lappy, Jacques Perrier, and Charles Tifo. I was in the coach's room with them. And they were talking about lineup. And then Jacques, would you ready? I said, no, we're not changing the lineup. I said, you can't do that. So we win game 4. Now we're up 3-1. We're going for game 5 in LA. And now I know I can play. I've been skated, but feeling good. Adrenaline, even if I only play 7 or 8 minutes, I'm going to be on the ice. But my thinking behind this was, okay, we lose game 5, I'm in the lineup, we have to go to LA. Lose game 6, now we have a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't want to change anything. And at the time, Jacques said, okay. He said, Jacques, I said, please agree with me on this, because I said, I can't limit myself. I said, the Stanley Cup has got to be won tonight. I think we will. I said, but at the end of the day, I said, if we don't, I'll never, I'll never, I obviously remember this forever. So let's keep it the same way. He went on to say, well, to have your name on the cup, you have to play one game in those days in the finals.
Yeah.
And we had one guy that did not play in the finals yet. It was Donald Dufresne. And
I did not know this. So
he put Donald Dufresne set up. He dressed up 7 defensemen. I forgot who he took out in the lineup. I think it was Eddie Ronan, a right winger. But he played with 11 forwards and 7D. And the story now, we end up winning, and Donald got his name.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was Jacques Demers, great man. I got to see him a few years back. I haven't seen him last few years, but fortunately with his health. But he was a player's coach. He was I remember him. I know I'm going on and on, Gino, but these are
that's good. We're loving this.
Thank you for bringing great memories. But before the playoffs started, we all sat on the bench with our jersey on, not with our equipment on, just our jersey. We all sat there, and he gave his speech, and he goes, you see these banners up there?
Mm-hmm.
This is before the playoffs. He says, we're going to shock the world. He says, we're going to have a banner there in the playoffs. And stories, that's how it went. And obviously, we had character guys, Kirk Muller, Mike Key, Sean Leclerc, Pete Carpenter, great defensive player that could play, on any position.
And the last Stanley Cup ever won by a Canadian team to this point, which is mind-boggling. And you were a part of it, my friend.
Well,
Denny, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated catching up with you and hearing you some great stories. I really, really appreciate this. Before you take off, I want to play 5 fast facts with you, okay? I'll ask you 5 quick questions relating back on your career, and you give me 5 quick answers, okay?
Got it.
All right, time now for 5 fast facts with Stanley Cup champion, Hockey Hall of Famer, selected as one of the top 100 players of all time, Denis Savard. Denny, who was the best teammate that you ever played with?
Steve Leimer.
Well said. Okay, who was the best coach you ever played for?
Jacques Demers.
Because
we won the cup.
Who did you hate playing against the most, and why?
Oh, that's a great. Well, Al McGinnis, and not because he was a physical player. He was very smart player. Could never get around him, especially the years we played in St. Louis. Al had probably that. I did not fear him, but I know he was very good to play against. Very hard to beat a 1-on-1. But guys like Gard Butcher, it was hard to play against, Big Butchie. And I got to meet him after our career was all done. What a great man. What a great guy.
After all the success in your career, both on and off the ice, what's the one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you could go back and speak to your 15-year-old Denis Savard? What advice would you say to yourself?
Have fun. I had fun, and don't be fearful. Just go on with it. You got to deal with it. Kids at that age, and I have one of our little boys now, Maverick, that plays AAA. He's the youngest 15-year-old playing AAA in Montreal. It's in Montreal. I tell him, you go have fun. And the only thing you can control is how hard you play. He's a little guy, not very big. He's playing with some big guys. I went him to practice about a month ago. I didn't have a chance to see a game yet, but they still well. Wish him all the best.
You're a smaller guy who made it work, so you're a good example of that. All right, last question. If you hadn't become a professional hockey player, what career do you think you would have had instead?
Well, it's a good story. If you got time, I was a postman.
You were?
Well, yeah, that was my first job. This is a better story than any story I could tell you today. So my dad said, hey, I got you a job for the summer. I was 16 years old. I said, when is that, Dad? He said, you got to be a postman. I said, postman? What do you mean? He said, yeah. He says, and we're going to have this route they're going to give you where you're going to go up the stairs and down the stairs and, deliver mail to the people. And I was in a little town in Rosemont, outside Montreal, where they had 3-story stairways. Go up, deliver the milk, in the door in their box, and went to the other building, did the same thing, and did the same thing. So like for about a week, I did that. I didn't like it. That's hard. And I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I said, it's great for my legs, but I said, my back's starting to hurt, which was a lie. He goes, oh, no, we're not doing that anymore. So my next route was in Nuns Island, just outside of Verdun, which was closer to my house. So now I get apartment buildings. So in the morning, the postman, as people know this, postman, they classify them around the morning. So I made all my packages, take my bag, and I go to the buildings. When I go building, 2476, the others, and they had all mail touched it with a rubber band. And I just kind of laid it down on the floor. I go to the next building, I did the same thing. Next building, I go to the same. It took me 45 minutes to do my run. Got there on 9:45. I was done. I was home by 10:30. I said, Dad, that's perfect. Then he gets a phone call. My dad's name was Arthur. So his buddy calls and says, Arthur, we have a problem. He says, what's the problem? He said, your boy is not too sharp. And I said, sometimes, and my dad used to tell me all the time, don't ever use your skates. That's the truth.
Yeah.
You mean, don't lose your skates. You're making a lot of mistakes, kid. You're not, I know that, but I tried. And then so then he went on, he goes, what are you doing? There's mailboxes in those buildings. You know that? I said, really? I didn't notice. So I said, okay, for next time, no, he said, you just lost your job. They fired you. You're out. I go, oh, God, okay. So I said, we'll move on to something else. But
you know what? Moving on to something else really worked well for you, Denny.
Yeah. Well, to finish up the story. So, that was a light. And my dad was great, man. We have 4 boys, like I said. So we had to be a little tough on this, which is the right thing to do at the time. But he said to me, he said, every time I made a mistake, he goes, and you go like this. If you lose your skates, you're in trouble. You know that, right? I said, nah, Dad, I'll be okay. No. Don't ever lose your skates. I'm telling you, son, if you lose your skates, you're done. So after I played my first NHL game, I said, Dad, I got my skates. So I got to get back into that way. So I got goosebumps when I talk about it. But he's
awesome. That is such a great story. We should label this podcast, He Didn't Lose His Skates.
Yeah.
Hockey Hall of Fame. It's been 5 Fast Facts with Hockey Hall of Famer and Stanley Cup champion Denis Savard. Denny, before I let you go, we know the NHL alumni are doing some great things these days, and I hear you're a big part of the NHL alumni fantasy camp that's coming up in Vegas in November. Great players, including Brian Trottier, Mark Recchi, and yourself are going to be there. Tell our listeners and viewers how they can be a part of this and hang out with you guys.
Well, the first thing, Vegas is Vegas, right? It's a lot of fun. Circa, great hotel. I've been there before. As people would know, they have that great huge food with all the big screens. You can watch sports. And most important, I've done about, I say 15 to 20 camps in my life. And they're fun for us. Yeah. And I know there's about at least half a dozen, close to a dozen guys that have done camps before that I reached out that are going to be there. And for guys that are looking to come there, it's a blast. I mean, they get to be with us every day, all day long, play some hockey, have some beers, have some laughs, tell stories. And Circa Hotel is a great facility. It's going to be perfect for that type of event. And we're going to get to watch the Eagles at the Sphere on the last night on the Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and pretty great old group that group's will be fun to see them. And, overall, it's just a fun time. There's no pressure on anybody. And, there's all kinds of activities that's going to go on during the day when we're done from hockey. And at night, blackjack tournament. If anybody wants to blackjack, we'll have a tournament for that. But, it's going to be a great event. Looking forward to it. Hopefully that, we get full house. I think we're pretty close to full house. It's not a full house already. But, thanks to NHLP. It'd be a great time.
Yeah. And don't forget your skates. That's the important part. Well, listen, for those who want to find out more about check out the link on our episode description on YouTube. Denny, It's been amazing catching up with you, my friend. You look like you're doing fantastic and still loving life. I can't tell you how much I really enjoyed the last half hour. Thank you so much for this, pal.
Not to talk to you. You're a great man yourself. So all the best to you. Keep it up. Thank you.
Stanley Cup Champion, Hockey Hall of Famer, selected as one of the top 100 players of all time, Denis Savard. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by Domino's Pizza and Athlete's Care. Whether you're hitting the ice with the team or watching the big game at home, Domino's has you covered. You can score big with medium two-topping pizzas, pastas, stuffed cheesy bread, boneless chicken, or classic chicken wings with the $8.99 Domino's Mix and Match deal. Any two items for only $8.99 each. Grab a couple of game winners from Canada's favorite pizza at domino's.ca. And Athlete's Care. Athlete's Care is proud to be celebrating its 26th year, offering sports medicine services to both elite athletes and the general population who require rehab for a new or chronic injury or pain. Go to where the best go. Athlete's Care Sports Medicine Clinics with 24 locations in the Greater Toronto Area and Ottawa. Hey, if you missed any parts of the show, don't worry. Visit our website at overtimepodcast.ca, where you can both listen and subscribe to future shows. The Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast can be found on Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. As well, please check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at O-Time Podcast. Until next week, I'm Gino Retta saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the Domino's Overtime Podcast.